All right, everybody. Thanks for joining this afternoon and taking the time out of your afternoons for this information session about the request for proposals process for Education Commission of the State's 2026 National Forum on Education Policy. My name's Joel Moore. I'm the Director of State Relations here at ECS, and I'm joined today by ECS's Events Manager, Caitlin Dennis, and our Director of Policy, Tom Kiley. Just a note as we begin, this session is being recorded and is going to be shared via email with everyone who signed up to participate in this session. It's also going to be available via a link on the RFP submission page, which we will be dropping into the chat here shortly. Just a quick rundown of today's meeting. We will be covering information about the audience at National Forum, the types of sessions we're looking for, ECS's policy priority areas, session fees for concurrent sessions, and then deadlines for submission and notification. After that, we will take your questions. There is a Q&A box, I believe, at the bottom of your Zoom window. Please drop any questions in there, and we will address those after we've gone through all of the material. Note that in addition to the recording, all of the information that we're sharing today is going to be available at the link on the RFP submission page. So if you need it written down or need quick access to that, there's an easy way to find it. To start us off, I'm assuming that if you're here, you know very generally who ECS is, but just in case, Education Commission of the States, we are a national, nonpartisan, and non-advocacy education policy center. We're created through the Interstate Compact for Education, and we work with all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the U.S. territories. Our work spans the entire education spectrum from early learning through post-secondary and workforce. Our signature annual event is the National Forum on Education Policy, which is going to be held July 8th through 10th in Washington, D.C. This meeting typically draws about 700 education leaders, experts, and partners from all 50 of those states, D.C., and the territories. And because of our governance structures with appointed Education Commission of the State's commissioners in all of those jurisdictions, we draw high-level audience, such as governors, policy advisors for those governors, state superintendents of education and their staff, education committee chairs, legislators and their staffs, state board of ed members, higher ed and early ed leaders. It truly is a bipartisan convening intended to share our successes and elevate great work and research to the folks who are implementing it every day. In addition to our main stage content, we host about 30 concurrent sessions across that education spectrum. Each block of our concurrent sessions contains early education content, post-secondary and workforce content, as well as information in the K-12 and transition spaces. For those concurrent sessions, there are 4 types of sessions that we're looking for. The state spotlights, those are sessions that feature an innovative policy in a single state and that include at least 2 state leaders who are actively involved in the enactment and implementation of the policy. We have state policy features, which highlight successful or innovative policy work in more than one state. This would ideally feature speakers from diverse role groups, that is to say, a governor's office, a Department of Education, a legislator, a state board member, and diverse political backgrounds for that. Research features. These are going to showcase recent or emerging research studies that may help education leaders as they may consider policy strategies in their states. And finally, workshops, which are intended to be highly interactive sessions that are going to be designed to guide education policymakers through their conversations and considerations as they think about their policy goals. How we choose these sessions. Our policy team is going to review every single proposal and score those proposals against rubrics that are designed for each type of session. From there, we have a National Forum Planning Committee. This group is made up of a bipartisan cross-role group cohort of our steering committee members. These are state leaders who are going to share their input with our planning team. And then our internal planning team is going to come together to consider the rubric scores and the National Forum Planning Committee's input to ensure that we've got a full selection of subject matter and also consider things like geographic and political diversity of the sessions. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Tom Kiley, Director of Policy, to share a little bit about ECS's policy priority areas so that you can get a better idea of that. Tom?
Wonderful. Thanks, Joel, and thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. We're really excited about your interest in the submission process and hope to answer any questions you have and provide some foundational information for you all. So in 2025, ECS commissioners adopted 6 priority areas that will inform our work over the next 2 years. The 6 priority areas are education policy topics that are most pressing to state policymakers. And as you can see on the screen is a list of the 6 priority area issues. And Caitlin will be dropping a link in the chat as well about to provide a little more context on each of those areas. In addition to informing our work at ECS, the policy priority areas will be a focus of our content at the National Forum. As you probably have seen in the request for proposals document and the submission form, the policy priority areas are listed along with a series of related subtopics. In your submission, we ask that you identify one policy priority area and one subtopic. With that, we do understand that there may be some topics that are relevant to our audience at National Forum and education policymakers that are not listed. And we encourage you to consider submitting a proposal on those topics. And if you have any questions about how to classify those as part of the submission process, please feel free to reach out to Joel and me. Our emails will be listed at the end of the presentation. So really encourage you to think holistically about the issues that are top of mind for our audience and education policymakers across the country as you think about your submissions. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Caitlin to share more about session fees and deadlines associated with the process.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. So I'm here to talk through some of the logistics of the RFP process. So if you have any questions on that, or if you're struggling with the website at all for the platform to submit, please let us know. I'll put my email and contact info as well. First off, the session cost. The session cost for all sessions is $2,500. This includes registration for 3 speakers. That's full access to the National Forum on Education Policy, and will get you access to the entire event. If you want to look at the possibility to add more additional speakers, we can do that for a discounted rate of $825. If your proposal gets picked, that's something that we can talk about after the event. Just as an FYI, these fees help support all aspects of our forum event planning and execution. If you have any questions on fees, again, feel free to reach out to us. We can absolutely discuss those with you. Finally, some big important deadlines here coming up. The big one is the submission deadline. That's Friday, January 23rd. The portal should not close until 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. If you have run into any issues, feel free to, again, email me on that day and I can help. Our goal is to have decision notifications out by Thursday, March 26th. If it is decided that your proposal is picked, we have a confirmation deadline of Thursday, April 2nd. For those proposals that are picked, we will have an additional deadlines that we will share with you at that time when your proposal is selected. So I'm gonna hand it back over to everyone else for any questions and answers. And if you want, Joel and Tom, we can read some of the questions. I can read some of the first couple of questions here for you guys.
Sure. I would just like to quickly clarify there, as far as session fees go, if a session is a state spotlight that is featuring a policy in a single state with more than one state leader, and it is submitted by an ECS commissioner, there is going to be no session fee for that session. So it's a very specific situation for that, but do you want to share? I know that there were some state folks who were registered for this. Wanted to elevate that. Yeah, so what questions do we have so far, Caitlin?
All right, first one we have, are different session types more suited for panels versus single presenters?
Let's see. I think that a good rule of thumb would be that more voices and more diverse voices is always a better thing for the content. That said, I think that there's an opportunity in research-based sessions for there to be a single presenter if they are coming forward presenting either work that they have recently completed or some sort of book or research that they have been working on. Even in that case, I think that if it's possible to include additional voices, that's probably ideal. Would you add anything to that, Tom?
No, I think generally the feedback we get is that the panel is a strong session, and people really like it, as Joel pointed out, the different perspectives that are brought from a panel type presentation.
I will add on to that. If you guys take a look at our rubrics, we do score points and add points for different perspectives, etc. So that is definitely an advantage to more presenters for panels. Okay, the next question is for policy features. Should the panelists only be from state agency leaders and their senior staff? Would other ed nonprofit orgs be able to present?
Absolutely welcome other nonprofit orgs, university folks, researchers, local superintendents. We welcome a diversity of voices for it. I think that there's space for all that. With that said, the ideal session would have some state level leadership. Yes, Tom, any additional notes?
No additional notes. I think you captured it, Joel.
Great. Let me just move on to the next one. Can more than two or more organizations submit a joint proposal, or can only one organization submit one proposal and partner organizations are only supposed to be speakers?
No, welcome joint proposals. I think that's great. Again, diversity of voices is wonderful. I would just note that when submitting, there is a primary contact for the session. So just be thoughtful about who is actually submitting the session, making sure that they are, good to go to be the primary contact for that. So work through that if you have more than one organization working on a proposal together.
Yeah, I would just add again, we'll have one person submitting it and who's going to be responsible, which organization is going to be responsible for paying that session fee. You guys can work that out amongst yourselves. We don't need to know the behind the scene details, but yes, you can definitely collaborate. All right, next question. Is a state spotlight limited to one state? We are considering a presentation with Rhode Island and Massachusetts and deeper dives into policy context in those states with implications for others and debating on the session type.
So if it's two states where you're talking about a single policy, I think policy feature would be the more appropriate category for that. With that said, I also wouldn't want you to get bogged down into which type of session you're applying for. Our folks will be reviewing those and be thoughtful about how we're reading it, whether we're reading it the same way you are, or if we need to consider it in a different category. We will have that thought in mind.
All right, next question is, are materials able to be distributed in session if they are selected? And I'll go ahead and answer this one.
Sure.
Yeah, we have a couple options for you. We will have an app, and then one of the things that we will, if your select session is selected, we can include those documents with our app. We also fully support if you guys want to send physical products to be handed out during the session. We don't print anything for you all, but we're happy to help you all with that process in terms of making sure stuff ends up in the right room at the right time. But absolutely, you guys can share any materials you want with that. So we do have, again, physical app, we have both options. There's a question about differences between this year's conference design from last year.
I think that the short answer is it will be largely the same. There may be some differences in number of sessions and number of main stage sessions, but I anticipate that the overall format of the meeting is going to be pretty similar to past national forums.
Okay, all right. If a session type indicates that there can be up to 3 speakers, is it right to assume this count would include the moderator? And I'm going to say yes, that would include that. If you're looking at having that 4th additional speaker, that would be the additional $825 that you would reach out to us about. But yeah, 3 for the submission process. And then if you're looking at a 4th, if you get selected, would be the total and would include a moderator. So anything to add, Joel and Tom?
Nope.
For state spotlights, would you consider proposals that spotlight legislation that is currently moving through a state legislature? The legislative session would be concluded before the forum, but the legislation may not have passed by the decision notification date.
That's a great question. I think the ideal session would focus on something that has passed and shown some sort of demonstrable result. Obviously, we have had sessions in the past and would definitely consider something that has passed more recently than that. But it would be considered on a case-by-case basis. Tom, any clarity to that answer?
Yeah, I agree, Joel. But I think if there maybe one exception, maybe if you can share information on the process, the legislative process, and who's been involved and who's been engaged in that, that may be something to consider as well, if the legislation has not passed.
Yep.
All right. If an organization has more than one session accepted, does a single session fee cover all sessions submitted by the organization?
No, the session fee will be per session.
Yes. So if you get some sessions submitted and accepted, it would be a total of 5,000, right? Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Live math. So. All right. Next one. For sessions not initially selected, is there a wait list? And I'm really glad we got this question. So hopefully Joel can talk about other options.
Sure. Well, I think that one of the things that I should have mentioned in the opening is that we are using this opportunity to hear from you all to consider different ways that we can feature the great work. I know that the last 2 years for the RFP process, we've received about 300 submissions for about 30 slots, which means that there are a lot of really amazing sessions that we're not able to feature just because of time. So there are other things that we have in mind, whether that's our new webinar series that will be starting later on this year, or our EdNote platform to elevate state stories. There are there's also our winter commissioners meeting to feed in ideas for appropriate content for that. So it's as for a formal wait list, I don't know that we have one of those, but we will obviously be reaching out to folks who have incredibly strong sessions who just aren't able to make it for whatever reason. So yeah, absolutely open to considering those for other alternative routes to publicity.
Our last question in the queue at the moment. So we'll give people, again, a little bit of if they want to answer it, please go ahead and answer the question right now. Is there anything else, Joel and Tom, that you think is important for people to know about this process that maybe we have had common questions in the past?
One thing I would add, I know that the policy priority areas do cover a lot of ground, but if you have a session that doesn't neatly fit into one of those, I would not let that discourage you from submitting. I know that there are some major areas of education policy that may not be cleanly covered by those policy priority areas. So please still submit. We look forward to reading your proposal and considering it. I believe that the concurrent sessions, Ira asks in the chat, how much time will we have to present? The concurrent session blocks are usually 1 hour.
Correct. And just as an FYI, we usually recommend about 45 minutes of content and leaving 15 minutes, well, slightly less, give or take 15 minutes for Q&A, but that is something that our group takes into consideration, is if you plan for things like Q&A and you're showing them that in your session. So this is a great question here. Of the 4 types, is there a certain proportion of each category you are looking to fill? Are you hoping to have an equal amount of each category, or will there be a category that's more of the slots than other categories?
Great question. Our hope is to have in each block of concurrent sessions 1 workshop. That means that depending on how the final calendar plays out, we'll have between 5 and 7 workshop sessions. I would I know that doesn't sound like very many considering the number I threw out earlier, but also we had considerably fewer proposals that were appropriate for workshops this past session. So, as far as the division between research-based policy features and state spotlights, I think that those are relatively open formats and will be a good mix of all of them. Obviously try to keep it spread out among those, but there's not a quota or anything for that sort of for those sorts of sessions. Um, Related but unrelated, obviously there are particular subject matter areas on which we receive many, many more proposals than other subject matter areas. So uh, that may be also a consideration as you think about if your organization or state is working in a lot of has many different options for a proposal, may be worth considering which policy area may be a more unique point of view.
Yeah, and I would also add we try to balance out areas in
Oh
each
yes, yeah.
with trying to make sure that we have at least one ECE and one post-secondary as well in each of our concurrent sessions. So just that might be helpful as well. Here's another question. Looking at the balancing state and local revenues in K-12 finance, is that more about state and local split of funding responsibility in funding formulas, or how to navigate changing economic conditions?
A really good question. I think it can be both. I think it's a broad enough category subtopic there that we could include both of those within that subtopic. So I think both would be acceptable.
All right, any other questions? We'll give you, oh, here we go. Joel mentioned that some topics don't always neatly fall on the policy priorities offered, and that during review, ECS will consider the nuances. Would you also apply that to session types?
Absolutely. I believe that last year we had a session that was submitted as a policy feature that the way that was written, we thought fit the workshop mold very well. So we did have a back and forth with the session leads on that, and were able to, tweak it a little bit to fit where we thought it might contribute better to the overall agenda. So we do read these with that in mind.
So yeah, there's a question here about asking if the
Yes, and
webinar
you
will
should
be available.
ask if it will be available and sent to participants. Yes, if you registered for this meeting, you will receive an email tomorrow with the webinar, and it will also be available on the RFP submission page.
And also ECS's YouTube page as well. So that's where we host these. Lots of avenues to reach it. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. Should we move on, gentlemen?
That sounds great. If anybody else drops one in, we can talk about it then.
Yep. Okay. Tom?
We just wanted to note that on January 28th, we'll be hosting a webinar on education policy trend forecasts. So looking ahead at 2026, our policy team will be presenting on a series of trends that we've seen in our work and across the states. I encourage you to register. Caitlin just dropped a link in the chat as another part of our ongoing webinar series at ECS. I see one question in the chat that popped up, Caitlin.
Yep. I take that. If multiple ECS partners and states decide to partner together on a presentation, do the fees for the session apply beyond sponsorship costs?
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, the question is whether ECS partners receive any consideration on the session fees. The session fee for all proposed people except for ECS commissioners is $2,500. Partners, there are a couple of options that we can speak with Tony Sabo, our development manager, with about those if a partner would like to pursue a more guaranteed route to a session.
Great. So I think that's the last question if we want to wrap it up.
Well, wonderful. And thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We really appreciate your interest in our request for proposals and really look forward to reading your submissions after the 23rd. As mentioned, Joel and my email is on the screen. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, be it about session type or the classifications of priority area issues. We're always happy to answer all questions there or in between. Nothing's too big or too small, so please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to get back to you with a concrete answer. But with that, I just want to express our thanks again, and we look forward to reading your submissions.
Thanks, everyone.